While the Saiyan warriors gazed at the stars with pride, celebrating their latest conquests, the Emperor of the Universe had already made an irreversible decision. In the shadows of the palace, Frieza had given a secret order. The planet Vegeta was to disappear, along with its entire race. No one was meant to survive, but among all the Saiyans, only one wounded warrior at the edge of death felt the true weight of that betrayal. That warrior was named Bardock. He had just lost his entire squad in a brutal ambush. Dodoria and his men had eliminated them without mercy, following direct orders from Frieza. Bardock, covered in blood and with his scouter shattered, crawled to a dark corner of the battlefield. He knew his wounds were fatal, and that he did not have much time left to live. However, in his mind, there was only one clear thought. He had to save his son. With the last strength he had left, Bardock activated his damaged communicator. The signal was weak and full of interference, but he managed to connect with Planet Vegeta. On the other side, a deep and annoyed voice answered. It was Nappa, the massive Saiyan subordinate to Prince Vegeta. At that moment, Nappa was finishing preparations for a new mission of conquest alongside the prince. Who dares to call on this frequency? Bardock, that low-class Saiyan who always manages to survive. What is it you want? I am busy and have no time for nonsense. Bardock breathed with difficulty and spoke with a broken but firm voice. Nappa, listen to me carefully. There is no time for long explanations. Frieza has betrayed us. He is going to destroy the entire planet Vegeta. He wants to wipe us all out. He considers us a threat he can no longer control. Nappa let out a loud laugh, clearly incredulous. Are you delirious from your wounds? The great Frieza would never do something so absurd. We are his strongest soldiers. Why would he want to eliminate us? I swear it to you by all my Saiyan blood, Bardock insisted. I saw his intentions with my own eyes. My team was already massacred. Dodoria attacked us because we knew too much about his plans. I only ask one thing of you before I die. Protect my son Kakarot. He is in the nursing pod at the main medical center of Planet Vegeta. He is just a baby with a low power level, but he is my legacy. He is the only chance our race has to survive. Take him far away from here. Take him to Earth. Nappa remained silent for several seconds. His pride as a Saiyan warrior screamed at him to ignore the call and hang up immediately. Betraying Prince Vegeta and Emperor Frieza was a madness that could only end in death. However, something in Bardock's desperate and sincere voice made him hesitate for the first time in his life. You are asking me to betray everything I believe in, Nappa replied with a grave tone. If I do what you say, my head would roll in less than a minute. Prince Vegeta is waiting for me at this very moment to depart for our next mission. I know exactly what I am asking of you, Bardock answered, with his voice growing weaker. But if you do nothing, we will all die anyway when the planet is destroyed. Kakarot is just a baby, but I feel he has something special inside of him, something that no scouter can measure yet. Help him, Nappa. If you do, maybe one day he can avenge us all and restore Saiyan pride. Nappa looked toward the sky of Planet Vegeta. The stars were shining normally, but he knew that calm would not last long. For the first time, the massive warrior felt a responsibility that went beyond his loyalty to the prince. After a few moments of doubt, he finally spoke. Fine. I promise you nothing, but I am going to check for myself. If this turns out to be a trap or one of your hallucinations, Bardock, I swear I will kill you myself, even if you are already dead. Bardock managed to flash a weak smile before the signal cut out completely. Thank you, warrior. Now go. Do not waste any more time. Nappa cut the communication and clenched his fist tightly. He whispered to himself, Kakarot, a baby with a ridiculous power level who could save our entire race. This is complete madness. Without wasting another second, Nappa headed at full speed toward the medical center of Planet Vegeta. He entered the building like a hurricane, tearing down doors and making the doctors and staff freeze in fear at the sight of him. Where is the baby named Kakarot? Nappa growled with a threatening voice. Sir Nappa, I am very sorry, but without official authorization from the parents or royalty, we cannot hand over any child. Those are the rules of the... Before the doctor could finish his sentence, Nappa lifted him by the neck with one hand, raising him several inches off the ground. I do not have time for stupid rules. Show me the child right now, or this place will become a cemetery. Trembling with terror, the doctor guided him to the incubation room. There, in one of the pods, was Kakarot, a small baby with his tail wrapped around him and a power level that barely reached 2. Nappa approached and observed the baby closely. Only 2. Is this some kind of joke? Bardock really must have lost his mind with his wounds. However, at the exact moment Kakarot opened his small eyes and looked directly at Nappa, the warrior felt something strange, a spark, a latent energy that no device could detect yet. It was as if this insignificant baby hid an enormous potential. Take him out of the pod immediately, Nappa ordered. I am taking him with me. Sir Nappa, that is completely illegal. You would be violating all Imperial protocols. Nappa released his aura with force and destroyed several nearby pods with a single gesture. Laws no longer matter. This planet is going to disappear at any moment. While he wrapped baby Kakarot in a sturdy blanket, his communicator rang again. It was Prince Vegeta, clearly furious. Where the hell are you, Nappa? I have been waiting for you for more than 10 minutes. What are you doing? Get here right now. Nappa swallowed hard and lied as best as he could. Prince, a last-minute matter came up, an important report that could not wait. I will catch up with you at the ship in a few minutes. Vegeta exploded with anger on the other side. Do not waste my time, you useless fool. Report immediately, or you will regret ever being born. Nappa cut the call without saying another word. He looked at the baby, who was starting to cry in his arms, and whispered with frustration. Little brat, you just made me betray the Crown Prince. You better be worth all this risk. He ran toward the ship launch platform. He chose the fastest and most discreet one he could find, programmed the coordinates directly to Earth, and boarded with Kakarot still in his arms. The planet's alarms were already starting to sound everywhere. People were running in panic without understanding what was happening. Nappa closed the hatch just as the ground began to tremble violently. As the ship took off at full speed toward space, Nappa looked through the rear window. Planet Vegeta shone for the last time, beautiful and innocent, before its imminent destruction. Bardock, Nappa whispered in a low voice. I kept my part of the deal. Now all that is left is to survive and discover what destiny awaits this child on Earth. The ship ventured into deep space. Behind them, a gigantic explosion of light illuminated the entire galaxy. The home of the Saiyans had been erased forever. Will Nappa manage to arrive safe and sound on Earth, along with little Kakarot? Will he be able to hide his betrayal from Prince Vegeta and Emperor Frieza during the trip? And what will happen when this baby with a low power level grows up on a distant and unknown planet? We will find that out in Chapter 2. After witnessing with his own eyes the explosion that erased Planet Vegeta from the universe forever, Nappa remained in complete silence inside the small Saiyan ship. The massive warrior never imagined the day would come when he would betray everything he knew. His loyalty to Prince Vegeta, his service to Emperor Frieza, and the pride of his race. Now, with a baby of a power level of barely 2 wrapped in a dirty blanket in his arms, he was flying toward a distant and unknown planet called Earth. The space journey was much longer and more tense than Nappa had calculated. For several days, the ship crossed the void of space without interruption. Kakarot did not stop crying for a single moment. His sharp and constant cries filled the entire cabin, bouncing off the metal walls and getting on the nerves of the rugged Saiyan, who had never had to care for anyone in his entire life. Nappa tried to calm him in every way he could think of. He rocked him with his massive hands. He spoke to him with a deep and threatening voice. He even offered him pieces of emergency food rations he had found on the ship. Nothing worked. Stop crying once and for all, brat. If you keep this up, I am going to end up throwing you out the hatch myself. How is it possible for such a small baby to make so much noise? But Kakarot kept crying without stopping, as if he knew his life had just changed forever, and that the destiny of an entire race rested on his small shoulders. Nappa sighed deeply and remembered Bardock's last desperate words. He has something special. Looking at the baby closely, the warrior began to seriously doubt. How was it possible that such a weak child with a ridiculous power level was the last hope of the Saiyans? Was Bardock delirious from his wounds, or had he truly seen something that no one else could see? Meanwhile, Nappa took advantage of every minute of the trip to erase any possible trace of their location. He checked the ship's systems over and over again. He deleted flight logs, changed communication frequencies, and programmed false routes to confuse any possible pursuers. He knew perfectly well that Frieza and Prince Vegeta would not be long in discovering his betrayal. As soon as they realized Nappa had disappeared with a baby just before the planet's destruction, they would begin a merciless hunt. Finally, after a journey that seemed eternal and full of uncertainty, the ship began to enter Earth's atmosphere. The ship landed hard in a mountainous and forested area, far away from any human city or town. Nappa opened the hatch carefully and stepped outside, carrying Kakarot firmly in his arms. So this is the famous planet Earth. It does not seem as weak and primitive as the conquest report said. There is vital energy everywhere. Suddenly, Kakarot started crying again, but this time with more intensity and desperation. Nappa looked at him annoyed, but then he realized something obvious he had overlooked. The baby was hungry. The Saiyan warrior had not the slightest idea how to feed such a small child. On planet Vegeta, babies were placed in pods and fed automatically by machines. Nappa began to walk through the dense forest, looking for anything that could serve as food. He found bright-colored wild fruits and a small river of crystal-clear water. He tried to mash the fruits and give them to Kakarot, but the baby rejected them with disgust and kept crying louder and louder. Frustrated and not knowing what to do, Nappa sat on a large rock and looked at the sky. "What am I supposed to do with you now? Bardock asked me to protect you, but he never explained how to take care of a Saiyan baby on a strange planet. This was not in my plans as a warrior." At that precise moment, they heard a soft noise among the nearby bushes. From among the trees came an elderly human man with a straw hat, a cane, and a calm, kind expression. It was Son Gohan, an old master who lived retired in these mountains. The old man approached slowly, showing no fear, and spoke with a soft and quiet voice. "Well, well, what a big surprise. It is not every day I see someone so imposing fall from the sky with a baby in his arms. Do you need help with the little one? It seems he is very hungry, and you do not really know what to do." Nappa looked at him with deep distrust. In his mind, all the inhabitants of this planet were potential enemies who could betray them. "Who are you, old man? How do you know we need help? Are you spying on us?" Son Gohan smiled warmly and introduced himself without hesitation. "My name is Son Gohan. I have lived alone in these mountains for many years. I saw your ship fall from afar and came to see if someone was injured or needed help. That baby seems to be very hungry. If you allow me, I can help you feed him and find a safe place to rest. You do not have to trust me immediately, but the child cannot continue like this." Nappa hesitated for several seconds. His instinct as a Saiyan warrior screamed at him to eliminate the human and continue alone. But Kakarot would not stop crying, and he truly did not know how to move forward. Finally, with great reluctance and keeping his aura ready to attack, he accepted the old man's help. Son Gohan led them along a hidden path to a small wooden house tucked away among the mountains. There he prepared warm milk, soft fruits, and natural foods for the baby. To Nappa's surprise, Kakarot calmed down almost immediately and began to eat with an incredible appetite. While the baby rested peacefully for the first time in days, Son Gohan looked at Nappa with sincere interest. "You are very strong, young man, and that child has a tail like a monkey's. I have never seen anything like it in my entire life. Where do you two come from? What has happened to you?" Nappa decided to tell a partial and careful version of the truth. "We come from very far away, from a planet that no longer exists. It was destroyed by a force we could not stop. Only the two of us are left. My name is Nappa, and he is Kakarot, my nephew. We need a place to hide for a while. No one must know we are here." Son Gohan nodded with understanding and respect. "I understand perfectly. This world can be dangerous for those who are different. You can stay here as long as you need. The mountain is quiet. No one usually comes up here, and I will keep your secret." The following days were completely strange and new for Nappa. Living in a human house, eating earthly food, sleeping under a wooden roof, and taking care of a baby was not at all in his life plans as an elite warrior. However, little by little, he began to notice surprising changes in Kakarot. The baby grew at an astonishing speed. One night, while Nappa was training outside the house under the light of the full moon, Son Gohan approached in silence. "I have been watching the little one carefully. He has a very special energy, different from anything I have felt before. If you want, I can teach him to control that force when he grows a bit more. I was also a warrior in my youth, and I know how to train someone with potential." Nappa remained pensive for a long time. The idea of a weak human training a Saiyan seemed absurd and almost insulting to him, but deep down he knew he could not properly educate Kakarot alone. He needed real help if he wanted the child to survive and one day fulfill Bardock's last wish. Fine, but only the basics. I do not want him to become soft like the inhabitants of this planet. He must remain a Saiyan warrior. Son Gohan smiled with satisfaction. Understood. We will start little by little and with respect. Meanwhile, far away from Earth, in the depths of space, Prince Vegeta and Emperor Frieza had already discovered Nappa's betrayal. Vegeta was furious and shouted orders without stopping. Nappa! That traitor took an insignificant baby and fled like a coward. When I find him, I will make him suffer slowly before killing him. Frieza, with his usual cold and calculating smile, gave the final order. Search for him without rest. We cannot leave loose ends. If that child survives and grows, he could become a real problem in the future. Send all the necessary soldiers. Back on Earth, Nappa watched in silence as Kakarot slept peacefully in a makeshift crib. For the first time since the destruction of Planet Vegeta, the massive Saiyan felt something like hope growing in his chest. Bardock was right. This brat really has something special inside of him. It only remains for him to grow enough to prove it. But Nappa did not know that the true danger was only beginning, because in the shadows of the universe, much more powerful forces had already begun to track their location and were approaching Earth closer and closer. Will they be able to protect Kakarot from Frieza's forces that are already on the way? Will the little Saiyan manage to adapt completely to life on Earth alongside Son Gohan? And what will happen when Prince Vegeta finally discovers where they are hiding? We will find that out in Chapter 3. Months passed in the isolated mountains of Earth, but the tranquility surrounding that place did not mean all was calm. Nappa was no longer the same. He had left behind the conquests, the senseless wars, and the destruction of planets. Now his time was dedicated to something completely different, observing Kakarot's growth. And what he saw was not normal. That baby who arrived with an insignificant, barely perceptible power level was evolving at an impossible speed, even for a Saiyan. Every day he showed something new. More strength, more control, more energy. Son Gohan was in charge of guiding him. He taught him to move, to coordinate his body, to hold objects, but also to control those small explosions of energy. Nappa observed in silence, with his arms crossed and a serious face, but inside him there was a war. This brat does not stop surprising me, he murmured in a low voice. Bardock was right. There is something inside him that no one else could see. Kakarot, oblivious to everything, played outside. At one moment he lifted a rock much larger than his own body and threw it several meters without effort. Nappa could not help but react. Oh, that is how it is done. That is the spirit of a true Saiyan. But Son Gohan did not smile. He watched him with concern. His growth is extraordinary, but also dangerous. If he only develops his strength, he will end up losing himself. He needs balance. He needs to learn to live, not just to fight. Nappa did not respond immediately, but he knew the old man was right, because when night fell, everything changed. Silence covered the mountains, and Nappa went out alone. He trained with brutality, hit trees, threw blasts of energy at the sky, and remembered the moment when everything ended. The instant when Planet Vegeta disappeared, the explosion, the Saiyan pride erased from the universe. And then he understood. Now his mission was not to conquer, it was to protect the last trace of his race. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, the hunt had already begun. Vegeta had forgotten neither the betrayal nor the humiliation. Nappa, that traitor, when I find him, I am going to make him suffer before I kill him. His eyes fixed on the radar data, and then a weak but unmistakable signal appeared. So there you are. Get ready. We are going to Earth. Weeks later, the ship pierced Earth's atmosphere at full speed. The impact against the desert ground was violent. Vegeta stepped out first. Imposing, confident, superior. Scan every corner of the planet. I want no mistakes. His soldiers obeyed immediately. Kakarot was already walking. His steps were firm. His energy, unstable, played near the river. Concentrated on a stone, he lifted it, heavy, too heavy for his age, and threw it several meters. Nappa saw it and smiled. That is it. That is how a Saiyan warrior fights. But Son Gohan was not at ease. This is a problem. His energy is increasing too fast. If someone in space detects him, they will come. And at that instant, everything changed. Nappa felt it. A strong, familiar, unmistakable presence. His expression hardened instantly. It is him, Prince Vegeta. There was no longer any doubt he had found them. Nappa's heart began to beat with force. He knew this moment would come, but not so soon. Not now. Not when Kakarot was still so small. There was no time to think. Gohan, hide him right now. I will take care of stopping him. Gohan did not hesitate. He took the child and disappeared into the mountain. Kakarot began to cry. Nappa was left alone. He breathed deep and released his aura. Minutes later, the sky opened. A figure descended at high speed. Impact, dust, total silence. Vegeta was in front of him. Nappa, traitor. Nappa did not back down. Prince, Frieza, betrayed us all. I only protected Bardock's son. Vegeta let out a laugh full of contempt. Bardock, and you betrayed your prince for him? His eyes turned cold. Hand over the child. Nappa clenched his fists. His aura exploded. No, he is the last hope of the Saiyans. The atmosphere became heavy, tense. Vegeta took a step forward. Then you are going to die. But just before attacking, a cry. Kakarot from the mountain. A wave of energy erupted and traveled across the entire valley. Vegeta stood frozen, surprised. That energy is Saiyan, but it is not normal. Nappa smiled. That is Kakarot, and I will not let you touch him. The battle was about to begin. Two Saiyans, two paths, an inevitable destiny. But what neither knew was that Kakarot's true power was barely awakening. The tension in the air was dense and heavy. Nappa and Vegeta faced each other in the open clearing, with their auras glowing intensely and the wind whipping the grass and trees. Neither of the two was willing to back down. For Nappa, this was a desperate struggle to fulfill Bardock's last will and protect the future of the Saiyans. For Vegeta, it was wounded, pride, betrayal, and superiority that had to be punished. You have fallen very low, Nappa. Serving a low-class Saiyan and protecting a useless baby instead of being faithful to your prince. You disgust me. Nappa clenched his fists and released all his power. His aura exploded with intensity, making the trees and the ground tremble. I am not going to argue with you, Prince. If you want to get to Kakarot, you will have to go over my corpse. Vegeta smiled with arrogance and attacked first. He moved at incredible speed and hit Nappa in the stomach with a brutal punch. Nappa spat blood, but he recovered and counterattacked with powerful blows. The two Saiyans clashed violently in the air, creating explosions of energy that illuminated the sky. Each blow resonated like thunder. Nappa used his vast experience to compensate for the power difference and managed to land several strong impacts on Vegeta, infuriating him even more. How dare you touch me? An enormous purple beam came out of his hands and headed toward Nappa. The older warrior resisted the attack with all his strength. The impact was devastating. When the smoke cleared, Nappa was on his knees, seriously injured, but still alive. No, I am not going to fall that easily. Kakarot deserves a real chance to live. At that moment, from the hiding place in the mountain, little Kakarot felt the danger and began to cry with unusual force. A pure golden energy began to emanate from his small body. Son Gohan held him with surprise. The baby's power expanded through the valley. Vegeta stopped and looked toward the mountain with curiosity. What is that strange energy? It is Saiyan, but it feels more pure and wild. It is the child. Nappa took advantage of the distraction and hit Vegeta with a strong uppercut, throwing him against the rocks. The prince got up more enraged than ever. That power. If that brat has that much potential, I cannot leave him alive. He would be a threat to me. Vegeta flew toward the mountain. Nappa, ignoring his wounds, pursued him with desperation. Do not touch him, Nappa shouted, throwing a ki blast. The two clashed again over Son Gohan's house. The battle was even more fierce. Vegeta dominated the exchanges, but Nappa refused to give up, getting up time and again thinking of Bardock. And in Kakarot's future, Son Gohan came out of the shelter with the baby in his arms and shouted with a firm voice. Enough already. This child is not a threat to anyone. He only wants to live in peace. Vegeta looked at the old man and the baby with contempt. A weak human protecting a Saiyan. Hand over the child right now, or I will destroy both of you. Nappa stepped between them, bleeding profusely. Prince, think of our planet. Frieza betrayed us all. Kakarot is the only hope we have left as a race. Nappa's words touched his Saiyan pride, but his arrogance and loyalty to Frieza were stronger. The Saiyans only need one prince, and that is me, Vegeta responded, preparing his final attack. Just then, Kakarot stretched out his little hands and let out a cry. A wave of pure and strong energy came out of the baby and hit Vegeta in the chest, making him back up several meters. Impossible. A baby with that power level. Nappa smiled with deep pride, despite the pain. That is Bardock's son. Now you understand why I had to protect him with my life. The battle continued with greater intensity. Nappa and Vegeta exchanged brutal blows while Kakarot watched with curious eyes. The little one's energy seemed to respond to Nappa's emotions, increasing when his protector was in danger. Far from Earth, Frieza received an urgent report. Upon learning that there were Saiyans left alive and that one showed increasing power, he smiled coldly. Interesting. Send more forces to Earth immediately. I want no loose ends. Back in the mountains, the fight was reaching its critical point. Nappa was seriously injured, but he refused to fall. Vegeta, although superior, was beginning to respect the determination of his former subordinate. Are you willing to die for that insignificant child? Vegeta asked. Until the end, Nappa responded with a firm voice and without fear. The battle was far from over. The destiny of Kakarot, of Nappa, and the future of the Saiyans hung by a very thin thread. Will Nappa survive this fierce fight? Will Kakarot manage to awaken more power to help his protector? And what will happen when Frieza's forces arrive on Earth? We will find that out in Chapter 5. The battle between Nappa and Vegeta had reached a level of destruction never seen before in the mountains of Earth. It was a war without control. Nappa, covered in blood and with multiple open wounds, was still on his feet. His breathing was heavy, his body trembled, but his gaze remained firm. He did not plan to fall. Vegeta, although clearly superior in power, was also beginning to show wear. His armor was cracked, and his wounded pride forced him to end the fight. Admit it, Nappa. You are stronger than I remembered. But this ends here. Hand over the child, and maybe you will die with dignity. Nappa spat blood and smiled with effort. No, while I breathe, Kakarot will be safe. You and Frieza destroyed our planet. I am only correcting that error. The air grew tense. Neither backed down. Suddenly, from the hidden shelter, little Kakarot let out a heart-wrenching cry. His golden energy emerged with an intensity impossible for a baby. A wave of pure ki expanded and enveloped Nappa, running through his body. Thank you, brat. Now I can truly keep fighting. Vegeta widened his eyes slightly. That energy is not normal. That child has a potential that even I did not have at his age. If he grows, he could surpass even Frieza. Without waiting any longer, Vegeta raised his ki to the maximum. Nappa crossed his arms and resisted with everything he had left. Nappa was still on his feet. Son Gohan, understanding he would not resist anymore, came out of the hiding place with the baby in his arms. Prince Vegeta, this child does not want to destroy, only to live. Has the destruction of your planet not been enough? Vegeta looked at him with contempt, but something inside him hesitated, and then the sky darkened. A ship descended slowly. Frieza had arrived. The tyrant descended floating with his cold smile surrounded by his soldiers. What an interesting scene. A traitor protecting a Saiyan baby. Lord Frieza, I will take care of it. Vegeta tried to intervene. Be quiet, that child. His energy is fascinating. He can be useful or a danger I must eliminate now. Nappa, with the last of his strength, stood in front of Kakarot. I am not going to let you touch him. Frieza smiled. Then, he fired a deadly beam, but at that instant Kakarot cried out. A golden barrier exploded around Nappa, blocking the attack completely. The silence was absolute. His energy was starting to awaken uncontrollably. Nappa, inspired, gathered his last strength. Vegeta, now. For the first time they fought together. Both attacked Frieza with everything they had. The Saiyans have always been a problem, Frieza said while dodging. We fight for the Saiyans. Coordinating their attacks, they launched a combined offensive while Kakarot released waves of energy from Gohan's arms. Then Frieza smiled and began to transform. His power increased brutally. In an instant, he disappeared and reappeared in front of Nappa. A direct hit. The impact threw him against the rocks, leaving his body shattered. Grow strong, Kakarot. Protect this planet. The baby cried out with desperation. His aura exploded in a gigantic golden light that covered the entire valley. The energy forced Frieza to back up several meters. Vegeta watched him shocked. That child really can change everything. Frieza, annoyed but intrigued, smiled. This has not ended. I will return when it is more interesting. His ship rose and disappeared into the sky. Silence returned. Vegeta, exhausted, watched Nappa and then the child. It is not your day, Nappa. And you, brat, you have an interesting future. Son Gohan managed to stabilize Nappa. Months passed, calm returned to the mountains. But something had changed. Nappa, Vegeta, and Gohan trained little Kakarot together. The child grew strong, but different. There was something in him that none could explain. A spark, a destiny. Nappa sat on a rock, observing him in silence. Bardock, we made it? The destiny of the Saiyans had changed, but what was to come would surpass everything they knew. Yeah,